Normally, I'm so deep into fighting the New World Order that I don't let it get to me. It's always in the late hours of the evening that it really upsets me and shakes me. But, folks, they are setting up the most hardcore tyranny ever seen, integrating the Nazis, the Soviets, all of their systems, youth brigades, forced drafts, tattletale squads. It has passed the House. We're still trying to confirm if it's passed the Senate. AP reports they're debating it. We don't have a headline yet. They call it AmeriCorps, expanding national service in the New York Times. The AP calls it Senate set to vote on expansion of AmeriCorps. But I have the bill here in front of me. Generations Invigorating Volunteerism and Education Act is a slightly different name in the Senate. And it is drafting into federal programs middle schoolers, high schoolers, and then 3 months to start out of the year 18 to 24 for military training. What we cover in the Obama deception. This guy's in office 2 months, and they've already basically got the sucker passed. Let's bring Paul Watson up. I called him up, freaked out 30 minutes ago, told him to look, and we've been scrambling here trying to find it during the breaks. Paul, has it passed the Senate?
I don't believe it's passed yet, Alex. There's a New York Times article, editorial actually this morning, lauding the virtues of it and saying that once the Senate passes it, it can be allied with some of the other similar proposals. So I don't believe it's passed the Senate yet. I'm trying to look at the moment.
Well, regardless, it's passed the House. And I've read the AP and this, and they don't say the name of the bill. The caller said the name, but we didn't write it down. What is the name of the Senate version?
Well, it'll be the same as the House version. No,
it has a slightly different one. Well, we need to find out right now. I mean, I'm gonna have to, you know what? This is too important. I'm just going to suspend the broadcast right now. We'll go to music till I get on a computer. I can find this in 5 minutes. Paul, you know what? You start going over your article from last Thursday, House passes mandatory national service bill. Then that dovetails with your other article, Defense Department announces civilian expeditionary workforce. And it says for domestically or internationally, a total force. And it says management retains the authority to direct and assign civilian employees either voluntarily or involuntarily, that's forced, or on an unexpected basis to accomplish the DOD mission. So this is a nexus into the draft for the 1 million man army. You go ahead and cover this. I'm going to Google it right now. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I think the Senate one is called the Serve America Act, but that's not identical to the Give Act. I'm trying to look now. Obviously, my internet connection has died at this exact moment. But, yeah, the one we reported on last week was the Generations Invigorating Volunteerism and Education Act, known as the Give Act, which was passed by 321 to 105 margin in the House. And in the under Section 6104, under a section called Duties, it says that, quote, whether a workable, fair, and reasonable mandatory service requirement for all able young people could be developed and how such a requirement could be implemented in a manner that would strengthen the social fabric of the nation and overcome civic challenges by bringing together people from diverse economic, ethnic, and educational backgrounds. And then there was another section which is called Youth Engagement Zone Program, which is similar to what the Senate version of a similar bill says, which talks about, quote, service learning, which will be, quote, a mandatory part of the curriculum in all of the secondary schools served by the local educational agency. And as he said, with the Defense Department version, which is for Defense Department employees for foreign missions, states that, quote, management retains the authority to direct and assign civilian employees either voluntarily, involuntarily, or on an unexpected basis to accomplish the DOD mission. So it's saying that basically, even if it's involuntary, DOD civilian employees will be forced to support military missions abroad.
And I'll tell you, they'll only get the fake patriotism they need to ram this through with staged terror attacks or a new war. Understanding how they operate, this is so unpopular, they're only going to get this with a staged terror attack.
Well, Biden promised that there would be a national crisis within, the first few months, so it's happened with every other president, basically, so we should expect it to happen with Obama.
Well, it's passed the House, and I'm on the Senate website. It says they're debating it right now. Harry Reid, the Senate Majority Leader, said in the Financial News Wire, he says the Serve America Act, Reid said, will provide better opportunities for Americans of all ages, for all regions and walks of life to answer the call to service. And it goes on. It is forced service. God,
yeah.
And you know, I mean, it's just hitting me the last few days. This is crazy. This isn't just a draft where they send 18 to 21-year-olds to Vietnam and then there's a lottery and all the rich people don't have to go. This is for girls. This is grabbing them and making them be under federal service when they're in middle school. 7th and 8th grade. This is in high school. And then this is serving at military camps, training, in defense training for 18 to 24. And then they have all these other corps. And they say it's mandatory. His chief of staff says it's mandatory. And do you see any of the supposed liberal websites talking about this? Do you see conservative websites? No. I see almost no one talking about this, Paul. That's what freaks me out. We put out like the first article on this Thursday. We've been warning people they were getting ready for it. And then no one's even covering it.
Well, the New York Times is certainly covering it.
Yeah, they're covering it, saying it's good. Exactly. All I'm seeing is positive reportage.
They say in an editorial quote, "This is a chance to constructively harness the idealism of thousands of Americans eager to contribute time and energy to solving the nation's problems, a chance not to be missed." So it's pushing the fact that the Senate needs to pass it. And whenever the New York Times and the Washington Post get behind something, then you know it's coming from the very top.
Well, I mean, here we are. It is a national draft for everyone. They admit it's military training, and then all these other little tattletale brigades. And England's announced open spies watching all the citizens right out of East Germany. Tell folks about that. It's happening in Australia. It's happening everywhere. They're just announcing it everywhere.
Yeah. The British government, including Gordon Brown himself, who are very proud of it, came out on Sunday and said that tens of thousands, and the figure is around 60,000, British civilians, and we're talking managers of supermarkets and people like that, people who work in stores, have been trained to spot, quote, terrorists and then report them to an authority.
And we knew this was already going on. We knew that this was already happening because 3 years ago you got the actual flyers in newspapers and put on doorways saying, watch for someone who keeps their desk drawer locked, watch for somebody who's on the cell phone, watch everyone, listen to what everyone's saying, call authorities if, and it was completely broad to everyone, and then big billboards with an all-seeing eye saying, we're watching you. I mean, they're actually putting up signs saying the all-seeing eye is watching you.
Yeah, and there are no real terrorists running around like, they tell us there are. So the only people caught up in it are, for example, there's a story today which I posted out of the Telegraph, I think, which was about two fishermen who use laser pointers to prevent ducks from becoming entangled in their fishing nets. And for pointing these lasers at these ducks to prevent them from getting caught in the nets, they were arrested by police under the Terrorism Act because pointing lasers is now an act of terrorism, and they were actually interrogated for hours.
Exactly. We can't explain how bad it is because we live this and see hundreds of things a day. Paul, they're arresting people for dropping an apple core by accident off of a table at a cafe. They are arresting, they've made it illegal to photograph or videotape police, but they have millions of cameras in London alone videotaping us. It's all off the charts, and it's happening in the U.S. as well. Listen to this. Kurt Nimmo wrote a story March 24th. Give Mandatory Service Act strips First Amendment from volunteers. He went and read. It's from governmenttrack.us, and it says George Miller, a Democrat, this passed the House, tacked an amendment on H.R. 1388, that's the one that's passed, entitled Generations Invigorating Volunteerism Act, to give government Obama's plan to require mandatory service for all able young people. Miller's amendment will prohibit organizations from attempting to influence legislation, organize or engage in protests, petitions, boycotts, or strikes, and assist, promote, or deter union organizing. So they also gag everybody. I mean, my God. In other words, Obama's Volunteer Corps Act passed by the House with a 321 to 105 margin and requiring the government to develop a plan for indentured servitude would deny millions of people the right to oppose and organize against government legislation of the First Amendment. This is close to a sedition act, a violation of the First Amendment rights, and has been proposed in recent history, a basic right